Hey everyone, welcome back to the Penn-Reading Industrial Division. As you can see here, we're going to do a quick update on what I've been working on. I recently was on vacation in New York visiting family, so that was a lot of fun. And now since I'm back in Arkansas, it's time to continue updating and make some more progress on the layout. And as you can see here, we have accomplished the curves, the elevated sections are completed as well on the main lines. And now it is the most tedious part of the entire layout, and this is going to be the major junction where you're going to have the Pennsylvania Railroad interchange with the Reading Railroad right here in Emma, Pennsylvania. And one thing I am adding is this other switch. It won't be this particular switch, but I'm adding a switch right over here, and this will lead off onto a cassette which I've created on the other Penn-Reading Industrial Division. And that will have a staging yard, and that will represent the Allegheny Secondary from my friend Darius's layout. And so we'll have trains come off the Allegheny Secondary from the staging, and we'll enter the layout and do some operations, either some yard work, or trains will be built, or cars will be added or set out either for Emma or the yard. And those mainline trains will come onto the layout, off the layout, onto the from the Allegheny Secondary. And so again, this is the most tedious part of the layout, creating this whole junction here, and I had to redo some of the track work so that way it'll make railroading sense in a way, so that way the trains could come off onto the layout from the cassette and then cross over onto the inner loop. That way it goes right to the yard. Otherwise, what's the point in having trains come off a main line if it's not going to go to a yard? So that is the goal here. And so right now I have just put the track in place. I have marked, I'm working in sections. So I'm working on this crossover here, then we're going to move along this way. And so it's really, when you're working with crossovers, especially switches, because they are so darn expensive, take your time doing it. There's no rush really. And you want these things to be precise. And not only are we going to be wiring this up, but we're also going to be using the Walthers switch machines, which I'm really excited to use. So that's going to be another feature. I have never ever used switch machines before. I've always been a hand-thrown kind of guy, and so now to finally have those switch machines, it's going to add a lot more fun to the operation. So we're going to get started here on the process and the progress of this this junction here. And so like I said, I've connected the inside loop for now, and that way we are going to be starting to wire, at least solder this crossover and wire this one up, and then we're going to work in sections here and work individual crossovers. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4 crossovers. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. So it's going to look kind of interesting underneath the layout. Anyway, I'm babbling on, but yeah, let's get started. Okie dokie. So what I first did was I soldered the rail joiners at the crossover when these two switches connect. That's the first thing. And then what I did was I soldered underneath the rail joiners where these feeders are going to drop, so that way we have good conductivity and a good circuit going right through this entire crossover here. Now you want to put a feeder down on one end of each crossover and then one in the middle. Now if you have another crossover, which I'm going to have, or another switch, you won't need one on one side because you already have the feeders on one side. So you may just need to have pair of feeders going the other direction instead of here. So there's no reason why to double it. So if you have another track here, you don't need another thing of another set of feeder wires. You already have it here. So that will eliminate a little less soldering on the next section. And so we're going to drop this in place. Hopefully it goes nice and smooth, and then we'll go from there. All right, this took a little bit of finesse to get this in. It's actually it's in place. Next thing I got to do is actually hand drill some holes for these crossovers to really tack it down in place. But you can see here we do have the feeders are inside. I had to make a couple of the holes a little extra bigger so it can fit. And that's the one thing I don't like about doing crossovers or switches in particular, is the fact that it looks good once you have these holes down. All of a sudden, pop! All of a sudden you're done for, and then you realize you got to actually make the holes bigger or move them over. So another way to do this will be to take the feeder wires and drop it down this way next to the on the outsides of the rail, which I'm going to do for the main lines themselves. I've never done that before, so I'm used to doing this, but I may, for the next set of crossovers, I may go on the sides, but I know this works for me, so that's why I may just continue doing this. Anyway, I got this whole thing is down here, this whole crossover. All of the joiners are soldered together on the crossovers. You want a good flow of electricity going right through this the whole time, and make sure these holes here in the center where the points are big enough. That way you can drop in your switch machines, which we're going to be using those Walther switch machines. So we're going to move to the next switch, and now I'm going to be adding some more feeders on that switch, so that way we can have a good flow going this way through onto the next crossover switch. All right, so after about 2 more hours of work here, I have installed the other crossovers, and there's a couple of things here that I need to just lay down. So the next thing I need to do is to drill the holes to hold in these Walther's crossovers. These things are gorgeous, by the way, and I'm using number 8s. I probably said that before, but I don't remember. These are all number 8s. These are 2 Atlas, and these other 4 are Walther's. They're a really, really nice track. And what I did was, since the main lines are going to be Code 100 Atlas, I did add 83s in between, because there'll be a lot of soldering, as well as what you do is I'll be doing on each end over here to connect the Code 83s to the Code 100s. If you have I don't know, my hand's in the way here. Okay, cool. If you have a Code 100, you need to raise that Code 83 rail on top of the rail joiners and solder it on top. That way they're very flush. Now I have here on this other end, just because the rail was detached from the ties, I couldn't do it. So unfortunately, that will be a little bit of a bump. Hopefully it won't be too much of a hassle or hopefully it won't be an issue. But you can see here, we'll roll the train through. And I'm using auto racks here, so a little bit of that you get a little clank going on, but that's all right. But it's so far, I mean, track work wise, it's very smooth. Now the real thing is going to be the actual wiring. Make sure the wiring is good. We don't have any issues with the wiring, and the train's rolling through. But the track work seems to be very good, I guess. But see, I'm satisfied with it. So what I have here, we'll switch it through. Here's the crossover onto main line 1. Ooh. There we go. Oh, the switch not thrown. That's why. I was wondering why it was going on, because it was working earlier. These are beautiful. Actually, I love these. Are scale trains. These operator series, I like them. They're very nice. Kind of hard to put. There we go. You can see here they are very smooth. Not I'll be doing this kind of move. But you know, if it's coming off main line to main 2, at least that's very smooth. And then we have the train just staying on the main line number 2 and crossing over onto the branch line / yard lead this way. That's good. And then straight ahead on main line number 2. It's all very smooth. So what I did add, which took a little more time, was to add the curve and to continue this branch line. Now the fun part is going to be to add the station back. I had to move these crossovers a little bit further this way just to accommodate the curves, and I don't want to have any of the straights going. I don't want the curves going into a switch. So I wanted the main lines and the branch line to be straight going into the switch. So I had to move these over just a little bit. The next step is going to be adding a switch for the lead onto the cassette, onto the Allegheny Secondary line. And then we'll be attaching, we're going to add another switch here to go into Emma to do all the switching. And then after that, it's really just connecting the main lines together, and we're pretty much wiring, and then hopefully soon I'll be able to run the trains. I am planning on having the main lines done in September. So that's my goal, and we're making really good progress. Okay, welcome to the mess of having a layout while I'm working on it. I am your host, Joey. So we have the inside, the outside switch, the switch that leads off to the cassette. It's going to come out this way here. Track is going to come through, and then we're going to have another switch right over here. This will lead to two tracks for the cassette. That way I have at least two tracks to store trains on. And the thing is wide enough, so I may do some scenery work on the cassette as well. So we'll see. But so the next step is to mark where I'm going to put the feeders in, and then work on this as well, get this all installed. I haven't gotten called for work yet, so I'm going to keep going on this so I can do as much as I can, because you know how life gets really busy really fast. The next thing after that is going to solder this code 83 track to the code 100 track, and so pretty much you're going to crimp the edges of the one side of the rail joiners. That way the code 83s will lay flush on top, so that way this rail is nice and flush and smooth, so you won't have the ba-bang ba-bang and trains derail. So yeah, let's get started. I'm going to mark this and get the feeders in and do some more soldering. So yeah, all right, cool. Okay, so you can see here we have installed all of the switches. They are all in place. All the feeders are installed. The next thing is to wire everything up and then add all the Walther's switch machines. That'll be the next step. And I'm going to move the camera around here because it's fairly long distance, but you can see here just from your angle that we have all the switches that are nice lined up. I did solder all the joints except for a few places which I have to finish. But I soldered a lot of the joints up between all the switches, so we get a good flow of electricity through all the switches, as long as it's wired properly. And then even the lead switch we put in, I actually found a couple of number 8 switches, and so I'm actually adding 2 more Walther's switch number 8 turnouts here. So I'm really excited for that as well. That way we got a nice the trains will have a nice smooth run right onto the layout from the cassette. So let's move the camera over a little bit and you can see on this area. Gosh, it just looks like a maze of track coming out of Penn Station. But yeah, this looks actually really cool. Hopefully it just runs well. That's my biggest concern, and what my goal is everything runs smooth. But this will be an awesome place to sit and watch trains pass through different switches on different main lines and branch lines and all that jazz. So that'll be cool. As you can see here, one thing my first time doing this is actually crimping these rail joiners. That way the number 80, the code 83 track can be flushed right on the transition to the code 100. And it's fairly smooth. My buddy Johnny came over yesterday to help me out, and we were able to sand down the rails just enough so that way they're nice and flush on each end. And so with the track, the main line being all connected here, minus some spots where actually you need to add some nails to hold it down in place. The first main line 1 is now complete. So that's a massive milestone. Now we have a whole main line that we could run trains on. So the next step is really just wiring it up. And obviously that's going to take a little bit of time because I want to do it right, make sure everything works properly, not have anything short out. So after this, the next thing is going to be connecting up main line number 2 and the branch line for here, so that way we can start all the track work to go for Emma itself, all the industries. And here you can see we do have the lead that goes to the cassette, and there's a switch that goes the opposite direction. That's the only switch actually that has to be installed. I do have the feeder wires with solder to the joiners, and so I'll drop those feeders down and the track will be ready. And so the next step after that is just attaching a piece of wood or a piece of foam so that the cassette can be put up when it's needed on an operating session. So guys, that's it. I mean, this is a massive update, and I'm glad you're here to help me out and be with me here on this journey. So until next time guys, this is Joey with the Penn-Reading Industrial Division. Happy model railroading, and I'll see you next time.